The sun comes up and the sun goes down. Work away, work away. We'll haul that lumber, lift that frame, grab a little shut eye and do it all again. The sun comes up and the sun goes down. Work away, work away.
So, does anybody have questions about this, or you know, anything about what you saw here? I'm happy to entertain any of those. And you're going to play for us and demonstrate this stuff.
Well, I got to get it out of the car. So if you want to keep on,
yeah. Bobby's going to get his stuff. And
yeah,
he's just going to. From his perspective as an artist, I thought it would be really fun for one of our meetings, and he volunteered to do this in his magnanimous way, as always. That we do a lot of stuff together, but from the perspective of getting to see what an instrument really does for an artist, to actually hear music coming out of it from somebody of his caliber is a real treat. So I thought it'd be fun to have him play for a minute, and he'll tell you what he thinks.
What is your ultimate design on the tailpiece?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, that tailpiece is one of the RGC tailpieces that was damaged, so I cut it up and used it to make the mock tailpiece. But on this particular guitar, I did that so I can move it back and forth with that adjustable thing to find the optimum, what sounded best to me is the length of string. That is a critical thing. But I want to build on this one. The tailpiece will look like a bass tailpiece, like a double bass tailpiece. So it'll be a long, thin tailpiece with adjusters on the end, because I want to bring that aesthetic to this instrument.
How did you set your frets before you just figured out where the tailpiece was going to be, as far as the length and dimension?
Well, you know that most artists have a certain scale length they really like. Okay, and Jack, he wanted a 34-inch bass scale length, which is the standard. It's what almost any bass guitar, electric or otherwise, is a 34-inch scale length. They call a short scale 32-inch. That means from the bridge to the nut, it's 32 inches, or 34 inches. And so that was the defining thing. Then the fret spacing is based on the 12th root of 2. That's the constant that allows us to divide the remaining scale length by the 12th root of 2. I forget what the number is, and then you get a logarithmic relationship with the frets. And so the bridge placement is defined by that, and everything else is defined by that. The one variable I have is I can move this length of strings behind the tailpiece with the amount of tension it takes pound-wise to bring them up to that pitch doesn't change, but the modulus of elasticity does if the string is longer. So you can move it more, but the actual tension it takes is the same foot-pound tension. So a shorter scale and a long scale will feel different to a player and have different capabilities. So, on an instrument that is, a lot of people trying to make bigger bass sounds will make a 35 or 36-inch scale now, but then the player is like this, and so when you really deal with players who have made their lives and made their bones doing this, you see all the ergonomic issues, and particularly when you're my age. I'm 61 this year. I've been playing guitar since I was about 13. This collarbone's probably an inch further out of position than this one. Years of it. And you watch when he just free stands. When he's just standing and hanging out, you could hang a jazz bass on him, because that's his, what he's done, and his body has formed to this over the years. And most of us, all musicians, have those issues, And so, when you're designing for, this is the very first halfling. This is what Myrtle is like when you finish it with Seal-A-Cell and General Finish satin wiping varnish. About how many years? 7 years.
What
for this?
What, Rocco's 18 now. We got it. So it's 11.
It's 11 years?
Yeah, it's 11 now.
11 years. He ordered this instrument when Rocco was in his room.
When my son was in the womb, when he was 7, I got the instrument. And so part of the joke is that, Tom, I don't have 7 years.
When Jack showed up, he said, I'm 70 years old.
Yeah,
Can we get this done quickly? I said, well, we'll do our best, But the great thing about this was this color, right. And it's now morphed into this beautiful dark hand rubbed finish. It's lacquer on the top with the dyes in it, but it's oil, in essence, tongue oil and varnish on the back, the neck, and the back of the neck. Because bass players like that feel, and it's a more transparent acoustic finish. So that was your question about finishes, which I can answer now, because lacquer finishes on the top, lacquer will continue to harden up and shrink over years. And you see these beautiful little finishes that come into you that have thousands of, I've been to my own guitars like this that are all checked like a windshield, you know. And people say, can you re-amalgamate that finish? In some cases I can, you know, with lacquer, but I won't, you know, because to me that's beautiful. It's sort of like, it's like wrinkles on people. It's like beautiful faces, you know, and I know none of us like getting older, but
No, we earned it.
we earned it, you know, we earned it. And,
Yeah, wait a second. Yeah.
you know, it's like
Oh yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Lacquer itself outgasses for years and gets harder and harder and harder. So when you make an instrument, you put the finish on it about 3 or 4 mil thick.
Appreciate it.
The instrument will sound harsh when it's in the white. The lacquer will take some of the treble response down. And a few years later, as it's really getting hard, that treble response will grow back into the instrument and it'll exceed its original.
The nitrocellular lacquers, what is the difference between those and the other ones that...
Like the acrylic lacquers and...
Yeah.
Well, nitrocellulose is really based on it's you could call it almost an organic lacquer in the sense that it is based on cellulose, really, a product that's actually made from wood, and it's synthesized from materials that will allow it to be exactly like wood. Acrylic lacquers are plastic; they shrink more. They're more friendly finishes to apply, but over the years they don't have that same acoustic transparency, and also don't have the same beautiful look to me. You know, with all of these. Water-based finishes, I get constantly called by manufacturers, check out this finish. We finally solved the water-based issue. I've yet to see a water-based finish that I don't see blue in, and I'm sorry, I just don't. I can't build instruments on this level. You know, my perspective is I'm leaving this work on the planet, you know. This is my life. I can't leave stuff like that on the planet. I can leave stuff on here that I really feel like I can tell my client it'll be better in 10 years, but I can't do that with the water-based finishes yet. So the work with the tongue oil and the varnish has been great because it's such thin. It's a thin polymerizing finish. It doesn't affect the tone much on the back and sides, which are sort of secondary resonators. But the lacquer on the top is beautiful because it just keeps getting tighter, more transparent. And I think you probably know
No,
this.
it's gotten better and better.
It's better and better and better. So then you have, it's like, wow, 10 years you've got this thing. It's a great bottle of wine.
It keeps on coming on. I mean, it's in the morning. I mean, that was the whole thing when Jack goes, he goes, you know, well, you know, tell me about the bass. I said, well, you can get up in the morning and, you know, light a couple of candles and just play by yourself and everything just goes, it just all goes away. It's got this really like soothing kind of like, you know.
How many parts of lacquer do you have on there?
Right, it's got that kind of. And all it's like a piano. It always goes, you know, and you go.
Like one of those Japanese.
Yeah,
What are those?
right. So, but it's a bass, but it's a guitar, but it's another instrument. And it has that kind of really, and because of the flat on the bass side, arched on the treble side, right, and then the tailpiece, when you go to hit harmonics, like little. It's a really three-dimensional kind of sound. And so it's coming off in different times, even though it's happening at the same time, so it has this kind of like dimension hang, right? And so that's what I really love about it, where you can play sensitive. If you whack it, it has a lot of that kind of stuff. Rose? So it's like having a piano but a guitar, but not a bass, but a bass, but it's its own kind of thing, and it's cool because when I play this instrument, there's more of it's more engaging and there's more of an emotional thing than a regular electric bass. Or electric bass, everybody's going, "Ow, give me a drink," you know. This is more like, you know, this is kind of like a drool, you know, like a. It's got that kind of dreamy. And so that's what's really cool about it. It does a lot of things. And it's like having a piano. Like when you stop playing it and you go, it goes. It's like almost like a sustain pedal when you take it off the piano. So the instrument that he made with the technology and the angles and what it really just lets you get a lot of musics out and a lot of different tones. And when you play like stuff like right, it hangs all that. It does all this shit. It's like macaroni. So anyway, I wasn't going to play any songs. I just wanted to show you just like how it hangs notes and the what it does that's different than a regular flat top bass or an archtop guitar. It just has this dimension, and that's what's really cool about it, because music goes forwards, backwards, left, and right, and and a lot of people just go, huh?
It's like a gourmet meal every time you eat.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun because it reacts different ways. I mean, you can whack it. So it has all the throttle, all the and all of a sudden, ooh.
Western red cedar.
Yeah, it is Western red cedar, and in the case of this particular design, and indeed the one we're making, which I'm going to show you something else here.
Put it on your nose, and it's like, it's a tuner. It looks like a little TV now. It's like watch phones, little tuners now.
One of the things about working with Bobby here is that when we first started working, the vocabulary that he has is pretty unique. So he would say, he would say, well, it's coming from here, and it's coming from here, and it's coming from here, it's coming from here. I put it here, I'll take a note, I'll put it here, I'll come back and get it later, and I'll do this.
Well, not only that, but I mean, but you have to be very careful where you're playing it, because in this shop there's too many sharp edges, and the sound's going to bounce all around.
There's a good environment for it, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, because it's not it doesn't suck it in. So in a case like this, the artist always is responding to the room and the environment, and so a carpeted room is a nightmare for most of us, and or a huge room where you have high ceilings because everything echoes and was weird. But he's such an extraordinary artist that people think of him as the great funk master with all the stuff he's done with Etta James and all the other great The Tonight Show appearances, all that junk. But the reality is he's a very sensitive musician who hears these things in these very deep ways. So he would speak to me about it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here, and I could understand that. I saw there was a guy who got hit in the head. He was on 60 Minutes, and he became a concert pianist overnight. I think he was a HVAC guy or something. And next thing you know, he's playing these incredible pieces, he's composing, he's in midlife, and he says he knows how to do this because he sees squares passing by in front of his eyes in his field of vision, and they tell him what to do. And now the doctors are trying to fix this guy, and he doesn't want to be fixed.
Yeah, it's like,
so when somebody talks to me about dimensional perception of music, and it's indeed images in 3D, that's a great thing. So we've developed a dialogue, so we talk to each other in weird ways. We have a lot of stuff up on YouTube, which Bobby and I have a show we're hosting with Your Artist Producing. We call it Creativity 360, or various other things. You can go look. We're bringing people on and talking about the essence of creativity, not show us your great stuff, but it's what makes you get up every day and create. That's what I'm real fascinated with, And so we're working on this. We're producing this show. We don't have a network, not doing anything with it yet, but I think we'll probably find somebody who wants to do it. You go take a look at it. It's on YouTube, and what's funny about it is Bobby will use a language, and then we'll have to put something underneath it, to translate what that means.
Speaking Babanese or something.
Can I tell the mackerel story about the board of directors? No?
Anyway, I don't, whatever you want. I don't.
We're sitting in the board of directors. Bobby's on my board of directors for RGC, and it's mostly Silicon Valley investors. And he's very smart about people, so he's sitting there quietly, we're on a phone thing, and he'll say, this is like years ago, we're talking about the bass and performing in public, and he says, I don't want to get stuck with a mackerel hanging out my ass. And so there's this silence. Remember that? There's this silence, you know, and then everybody says, okay. So as soon as we hang up in the board meeting, they're all calling me back. What did Bobby mean by that? I'm going, well, what he meant. And then you said frozen mackerel, I think. And then they said,
Even
what does
worse,
frozen
right?
mackerel mean?
Frozen,
This is the way musicians talk to each other. This is who we are. So I go, well, but Bobby meant that he didn't want to be caught in public performing with an instrument less than it was performing at its maximum capability. And they go, oh. So, you know, this is great. This is the stuff I love. Because when you think about it, you know, the mayhem that went on in the boardroom that you didn't get to participate with, Mike, all the silliness, it was stuff like that that got me through it when I hated it. It was, you know, the stuff that he would say, it was the stuff that sometimes even Len would say stuff that was ridiculous. This is a top that Mike ran on a pantograph today. Now when we're building a prototype like this one, I'll carve it by hand here using die grinders and whatever I got, chisels, you know, whatever. But we have a pantograph set up, which is an all-red Gemini pantograph over at RGC and in Windsor. And Mike is probably the master of that machine, so he just actually want to pass that around, we can do that. This is what a pantograph top comes off for a halfling like before we then take it and finish it by hand. These are two candidates for this bass that we're working on now for this trio collection. But it gives you some sense of what these things actually sound like and perform like. You know, it's interesting because every one of them is individual, everyone's different. So when people say to me, don't go away yet.
I'm not.
When people say, you know, why was Stradivarius a great violin maker? Was it chicken blood in his varnish? No, what it really was, in my opinion, the man spent 90 years building violins, and so he learned to turn his intuition off. He learned how he believed in his own intuition, and he made choices every single day over this particular piece of material, which is not the same as that piece of material. And that, to me, is the alchemy of making these instruments. And the day when somebody figures this all out, so you can plug numbers into a machine, and the machine goes patooey, patooey, patooey. That's the day I'll go and do something else, you know, because why do this? You know, why be a human being when machines can do things better than you? But this is something we can do better, you know, and I love that aspect of it.
No, that's.
Make some noise on this if you don't mind, because you haven't. This is putting you a bit on the spot, but just make some if you don't mind.
Yeah, I haven't played this one.
You haven't even played this one, so he'll kill me for this later. But
no, I won't.
The idea being that just to see this is different sound than that bass. It was designed to sound differently. It's designed to have a kind of and I cut a hole in the door down here today, Bobby.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, now it's got a
saw that.
bung hole in the rear there. So because I kind of missed the it's probably out of tune.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you been asked to put 2 more additional strings on it?
Not yet. No, when somebody else will do
Watch. No.
This is a Kasha style bridge. You had asked me about the bridge, and it's wider on the bass foot because it activates more on the bass side of the soundboard, like a lever would do. Not so much like energy comes through this bridge and it's translated, then the energy runs down the braces and it's distributed in the top. You know, energy in the top will follow the path of least resistance, like electricity will. So a wider foot like this lets more energy get into the top on the bass side of the soundboard, which is really what I'm trying to do with a bass like this. And this is just an interesting instrument. I haven't even heard it be played much, except by Jack.
Is that something you're adding to your band?
I'm sorry?
Is that something you're adding to the band?
What, this?
The shape, yeah.
Oh, this has been the standard for these kinds of instruments for most of, wider on the bass side, because it's part of that pattern for the halfling where it's flatter on the bass side. So in essence, you're using more of a wedge to activate, you know, more of that side. More energy gets down into that side. So it's got a deeper, more double bassy kind of sound, and that's what Jack wanted. So the success of this commission, that's probably something rattling. I don't know what that is.
He's got the fuzz tone in it.
Got the fuzz tone. But it's a different sound, so you know when somebody comes to you and says, can you build an instrument that will do this? This is another one of the great joys of the business, is that can you actually pull that off? A lot of energy and thought goes into it, and you know, from the casual listener, they might say it's not much different, but for somebody his life is about this really has more of a double bass sound, and Bobby's is more tailored for Bobby's style of playing, and I'm sure I'll be building one of these for you too, and it's slightly different environment.
Huh?
Do you feel any desire to leave? You know the brown note?
No,
You know what that
sorry.
is?
Is it like one of these kind of things? What do you mean? What's
It's
the
a South
brown?
Park concept. It's,
I don't know what the.
The brown note
Very
is the
low.
that makes you poop your pants.
Oh,
it's a-
that one. I
don't think you've ever done that.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember
With
you
a lot
ever
of
doing that.
amplification and a lot of the wrong drugs. Oh,
It's just interesting to hear, a different bass with the same guy who's really the one guy who knows more about these
Wow, there
basses
you
than
go.
anybody.
Listen
See,
to
it
that.
moved down.
Hear
I
that?
got
Yeah.
to move down. When we played the bass a couple of weeks ago, Jack said, the payoff note's here on B. And I said, I'll move it down. And he said, how are you going to do that? So by scraping
Wow.
the top and manipulating things, we were able to move that payoff note all the way down the scale. So that's what the art of hand voicing
yeah.
is.
You're not thinking, wow, it's way.
Is that something? He'll like that.
Would you,
Wow. Yeah. Got the payoff.
you
Oh,
know the door that you're putting in there with the springs, would you be concerned that the springs might buzz?
Well, I think that that's why I put the springs in there to put the door floats above the little seat or holder. That'll put pressure on the door. So right now it doesn't have those springs. So when I can shut the door, don't have a good catch machine into it either yet. But if I shut this door, you'll hear the bass response die.
Yeah.
If I open it up, you'll hear it come on. And that's the secret about porting a guitar. So in a given room, it might be a slight, for a really sophisticated ear or in a recording studio, you might open that door or shut it a little bit to have the tune. The way a microphone hears might be different than what another microphone hears. So that gives them the flexibility to adjust that Helmholtz frequency. And it's a cool thing to do for an artist who, is that deep. Actually really is this close to the music because these are tools. I'm making tools. I'm a tool maker. And sometimes when I'm talking to young makers who are resentful of the fact that we've had a few discussions. You get all the credit. I say, well, yeah. As soon as I hand an instrument to an artist, I disappear. That's the truth. So the artist gets the instrument. I'm just a guy who makes a tool. And in the world that we live in, everybody thinks it's glamorous, but like I say, nothing better for me than sitting in a stage off of a stage, not being the player for once, and watching somebody play the thing. And watching them respond to it is the greatest feeling in the world for me. And so that's the whole drill. A lot of people make instruments now for a living. In 2008, when the market fell apart, my group of friends and I created a culture of instrument making. A lot of us who are instrument makers, a lot of those people got washed out to sea because it's been like, as we all know, the economy in the world changed in 2008 for most of us that are artisans and craftsmen. Those who are still here are the ones who are going to be here no matter what's happening. So, for me,
wow.
I don't know any other way to approach this. So just try to surround myself with people that are better than me or as good as me or whatever the hell and learn from them. So this has been pretty a wild commission, but it's kind of a fun thing. It's not your average bear, so I thought it would be interesting to talk about.
Look at that rascal.
And especially from a woodworking perspective, because, we're just woodworkers, and how do we get these things to work? The back is about probably about 60,000 thick there to about 150, 140 here. Graduated very carefully so that the back is able to reproduce. We know that tops and backs, by pouring salt on them or glitter girl is my favorite glitter, put glitter on there and you excite it with a speaker, you'll see the patterns that get formed at different frequencies. Wow. From studying all of that and all the work that's been done in the violin world, we try to apply this, and it's like, ultimately, you could put a computer in a room and it couldn't come up with an easy solution. This is why I remember once I taught a guy who was a physicist, a Lawrence Livermore guy, and he was teaching me how I had a baseball and all stuff, And I took the class. It's a very intense 7-day class. It's endless. And we're sitting there 14 hours a day kind of thing. And I hear him on the phone in the office there, and he's going, I got everything. I figured out how we're going to do this. We're going to be cranking these babies out. So 3 years later, I get a call from him. He's going, I can't make one that sounds good. The reality of it is that there is no formula. And I love that about it because it takes immersion in it, and it takes training yourself. And it's a beautiful thing to do with your life. It's also very maddening because the market is so damaged now. But it's what I do. And
That's cool.
like I say, I'm a woodworker who builds guitars and plays them, and that's my aesthetic and all of that. And I'm blessed with some great people to work with. So this guitar will then, once Jack gets comfortable with this, he'll take it home.
Yeah.
And he'll like it. He'll decide what he likes, and it'll go to Larry in the back there if he's still here. Did he go?
No.
There he is. So he's going to take this instrument. He and Jack will decide what they're going to inlay on the thing. because Larry's the kind of king of inlay. And the bottom line is that Jack has a number of things that are important to his life and his wife, or his ex-wife, is no longer with his wife. And he'll do very personal work on this after Jack's had a chance to play it and decide what he wants. And Larry's a master of interpreting that. So most of the high-end instruments that I've done in the last, probably 5-6 years, and before that too, but especially lately, Larry and I have collaborated on it. Larry and David and I are doing a lot of collaboration together because we have circles that are the same. We play in the same band together. And because of David's connectivity to what he's extraordinary. He's unbelievable what David does. He's doing finished work on instruments at Patinas. On the inside of the trio version of this, David's done a scarab beetle, Larry's done the inlay work on it. We find that the more we do that kind of collaboration, the more we have our intersecting circles of people who follow what we do gets much larger, and we can help each other that way. And it's just a genuine joy most of the time to work with these people. So I'm blessed to have two great talents with me to finish these instruments out and to continue to contribute to them. So anyway, that's the story of this instrument. You can look at it, play it, and do whatever you want with it. Tomorrow it gets disassembled and the finish process starts. And that'll be about 5 weeks of lacquer work and oil approach, then the sand out, because you can see it's still rough. And there's still things I have to fix, things I have to make. But it can enter the finish process. And once that happens, then we know it'll be a certain amount of time. And now I have to turn my attention to everything else. But so this was kind of celebratory, too, for me, because now I get to take the bloody thing apart and start thinking about something else, because it's been like this for about 4 months.
Tom, when you go through the lacquer process, how many coats do you have to get up to that finish like he has?
We use a sealer, a vinyl wash coat sealer. We sand the top to about 220 or 320, depending on the wood, because lacquer just will not adhere to stuff above that well. Then we'll usually use a vinyl wash coat sealer. I'm shooting McFadden or now Seagrave lacquer, which is a specialist in the guitar world. It's like a bar top lacquer, flexible but compliant. So sealer, followed by a single top coat of lacquer, thin 50%, followed by the color coats, masking in the color coats, and that can be depending on how complex the color is. Those are very thin, very almost thinner than water, super thin, 50% thin lacquer with, actually 70% thin lacquer with MEK and dye in it. Maybe 4 or 5 coats of color, especially if it's a sunburst or it's got a thing, and then probably 10 following coats of clear lacquer over it. Each one sanded in between, and then allowed to shrink it and then resanded and then shot. So probably looking at about, I'm guessing on the highly colored instruments, we probably got a 4 mil finish. It's probably roughly 10 coats of lacquer, clear lacquer top coats, and then just taken all the way through and buffed. We sand to 3000 grit with McGuire's paper, which is Japanese paper. Really fantastic sandpaper. If you haven't experienced the difference between that and 3M paper, you should check it out, because it's a world of difference.
Where do you get it?
You can Hawley's sells it, and you can buy it at Hawley's Automotive on Santa Rosa.
Hawley's Automotive on the Mendocino?
Yeah, you see it comes in these little packages, it says McGuire's.
Oh, okay.
It's expensive, $21 for like 10 or 15 sheets, but they last forever. You keep them in water.
Yeah.
And they start out like the grits are like 1,000 all the way up to 3,000.
Wow.
So we have containers up there. Those containers that are up on that shelf all have cut up pieces of that McGuire's in there. They soak for weeks in a detergent solution. They get really pliable and soft. So we sand, our sanding schedule is 400 Trimite Goldback 216U steroid-free paper that you can get. We dry sand 400, 600, 800. Then we go to the McGuire's wet 1000, 1012, 15, 2, 25, and 3, and then to the buffing wheel. So it's a lot of sanding. And I think we have probably 30 hours in a finish alone, if we're lucky. And there are some finish experts here. I think that if Frankie's here, I don't think he's here, but some guys have become very good in my company. And the first thing I do when people, is I tie them to the workbench and I make them finish instruments and bring those finishes, because what I learned early in the world of making guitars is that there are not a lot of people who put the energy into making great finishes. And if you do a finish that's among the best in the industry, you'll sell guitars. And if you teach somebody to do that as a young craftsperson, they'll always sell guitars. They'll hate me. I've had people out of here, just for years I've been doing this, I hate you. Okay, are you selling guitars on your own? Yeah. Well, what do you think that is? It's the Pai Mei thing, because I beat you and kept you at that. I know you hate me for it, but you'll never have a problem selling a guitar, because finishes a lot of why people buy these things, What would you say?
No, it's gotten so much better, the finish on it. Like, it's just like, it was beautiful at first, and then it just got really like just more glowing and dark and warm kind of thing. And the back of it, like when you put your hand on the back, you just go, ooh. It's like,
Well, you know what I want to see on a finish is I don't want to see deformation and reflection. I want to see a perfect reflection. You know, if you've got this kind of stuff going in the finish, you're going to see that. And you know what I really love is buffing a lacquer top, and then 2 days later it shrunk down into the grain. And you can't duplicate that look. You can't screw with it after that. It's just one of the most beautiful things in the world, you know, when you have that thing going, and then somebody drops something on it, it's ruined. You know.
No, the Monterey. I mean, the Monterey. Oh man, it's just you just go. You look at the angle and the way that you just. I mean, it's you know, there's nothing like it. It's cool.
It's really fun. David brought the leading Japanese Hiroshi guy in here one day. He didn't speak English. That's Japanese lacquer, the most incredible. And we spent the whole day fooling around looking at stuff, and he was, forget his name, he's a very elegant gentleman from Japan. I'm quarter Japanese and I don't speak Japanese. And we had a lovely time, and he showed me some of the similarities, and we looked at refractive stuff, and you know, it was a great day. So I learned that the Japanese know an awful lot about lacquer, and you know, we know a lot about, and the car guys know a tremendous amount about lacquer. So, you know, I rely a lot on the automotive guys, because those guys, you know, back in the day when cars were finished with lacquer, there used to be a company in San Francisco called Lacquer Service Company, for God's sake. You could go in there and talk to 3 or 4 guys who had very little brain left from shooting lacquer, but they knew what they were doing, you know, they knew what they were doing, for God's sake. Although I would rather shoot lacquer than the isocyanate-laced crap that goes on cars today. That stuff is really deadly. I have to tell one quick story. My first shop was on Guerrero Street in the Victorian, 3 stores up, and it was on 23rd and Guerrero, next to a little grocery store. And there were all these cholo-type cats who used to hang out in front, but after a while they got to like me because I thought it's because I made cool stuff, you know, so they'd come in the shop and hang out. And they always protected me in Mission Street, you know, anything I'd ever get in trouble. But then I found out when I stopped shooting lacquer, one day the fire department came in and they said, this is a 3-story Victorian, you got to stop shooting lacquer. And the pipe used to run up from the thing right up to the ceiling. Well, all those guys were up on the roof every day, huffing the lacquer coming out of the top. That's why they were always sitting on the stoop looking like this. So when I stopped shooting lacquer, they got really angry with me. It was my lesson about be careful who you make friends with. You know? But, anybody have any questions about guitars or any of the stuff, there, jigs or fixtures or anything I can answer?
Before that, he deserves a round of applause.
Thank you. I also thank my guys who work with me who are here. They're incredible. Mike and the crowd. Yeah.